Hello, this is Stan in Gainesville. It's still in Florida, and it's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Brackley in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen calling in from the beautiful island of St. Bart's. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Sisters.
And a couple of brothers. So welcome to episode 398, just 2 episodes away till we hit the milestone of 400 at LDI. But today is a big day because we have a fantastic interview. Ellen, who do we have on deck today?
Well, the reason I said Lumen Sisters is that our special guest today is Christina Watanabe, who is an award-winning lighting designer and educator for theater, dance, music, and events. Her regional theater credits, very lengthy, include Denver Center, Trinity Rep, Dallas Theater Center, Contemporary American Theater Festival, the Rep St. Louis, Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Alabama Shakespeare Festival, Arkansas Rep, Theater Aspen, Theater Works, Hartford Pioneer Theater Company, Virginia Stage Company, and Charlottesville Opera. Her select New York City credits include Lincoln Center, The Public, WP Theater, Intar, Est, Primary Stages, Cherry Lane, 59 East 59th, Here, New Ohio, Theater Row, Bushwick Star. On television, Colin Quinn, CNN co-design, and she is on the faculty now at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas, is a USITT Gateway Mentor, Knights of Illumination winner, a proud member of USA 829, and she earned her MFA at NYU. That, in a nutshell. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on here.
Yes, welcome.
How'd you do all that? That's like a lot.
I don't know. I'm tired.
You left off one thing, but we'll get to that later.
Yes, we left off her undergraduate degree with the famous Stanley K.
At University of Florida in Gainesville.
I lit the match, which leads us to our first question. I lit the spark, right? That I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but we're going to find out. So question 1, Christina, and it's so good to see you as always. We have a long friendship. So tell the listeners, how did you decide? I should be able to answer this question, but I can't. How did you decide to become a lighting designer?
Great question, Stan. Thanks so much. So the short version is that I started one day and I haven't stopped. But the longer version is, when I was in high school, I was in drama club because all of my friends were in drama club. And when you're in high school, that's as good a reason to do anything. But I have a terrible memory, and I could not memorize any lines or anything like that. And so I really wasn't interested in being on stage. But I liked working backstage, and I actually started out doing playback on CD players at my high school. And then the person who knew how to run the light board was going to graduate, so she taught me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. This is interesting. That's fun. I did all the lighting my senior year at Eastside High School in Gainesville, Florida. But then, as I was graduating, I was like, okay, this is great. I had fun while in high school, but I'm going to college now, and I'm going to be a business major, whatever that means. So that's actually what I applied to the University of Florida to study in. It was during my orientation, I'm just flipping through the course catalog, and I actually had no idea that you could major in lighting design. And I was like, wait, I can get a whole degree in lighting design? That's amazing. I want to do that. To which my father replied, no, you don't. So but I was really, I was really insistent. It was such a great way for me to express myself. So, I was determined to do that. But also, wanting to get my degree in business. So I actually took the 5-year plan through undergrad and at the University of Florida. And so I have a BFA in lighting design, and then I have a BSBA in marketing, which it's interesting because I think about that a lot. I was like, I have a whole degree in marketing right now, but I have no idea how to do marketing in today's landscape. It's wild. It's different times.
So how would you describe your graduate school experience at NYU when you went up to grad school?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So after graduating undergrad, I saved up money. I worked at TCBY, which was, it's a frozen yogurt shop, and absolutely one of the best jobs I ever had. So I worked to save up money to move to New York because, I was like, well, this lighting thing is pretty interesting. So I'm going to do the thing, move to New York. And if it doesn't work out, I have this business degree also. So I figured I could find something to do in New York City. So I went to, moved up there with 2 suitcases, like full of books, and had like the tiniest little apartment ever, the tiniest little room, mind you, in an apartment with, I think, 4 other people. Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, just started hitting the pavement, reaching out to people that I knew who were in the city. I had done a fellowship at the O'Neill Center, and Raquel Davis was one of the lighting designers, and she was in the city. So I, reached out to her, and she helped me get my foot in the door in a lot of places. Sean Sukhan, who is also still in New York City, who's also an alum of the University of Florida, helped me get some work as well too. So it was really great to reach out to the people that I knew. And then as things happened, one thing led to another, and I ended up assisting a lighting designer named Aaron Kopp, who was just really instrumental in helping me get a lot of work in the city. So by the time it came for, I was doing freelance for about 3 years, and I felt that I kind of plateaued in the work that I was doing. And I was like, well, let me think about grad school. Because my thought, I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I'd be the first person in my family to do so. And I really just wasn't sure what I was going to go to grad school for, but I was like, okay, this lighting thing seems to be all right. So I guess I'm going to apply to grad school. And Aaron, I've never told Aaron this story, but I'll send him the link to the podcast. But he very nonchalantly, he was just like, well, you should apply to Yale. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'd kind of never thought about like what type of school I would want to do or go to. And since it was just a test run for me, just kind of testing the waters about grad school, and I knew I wanted to stay on the East Coast, I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Yale, Carnegie Mellon, and NYU. And I ended up getting into 2 out of those 3 schools for my first try. And I just really felt like NYU was such a good fit for me. So I was like, ooh, okay, I guess I'm going to grad school. So that was kind of my journey to get there. The process itself was pretty harrowing. I mean, I think that the level of work was incredible. And I do think that, the ability to grow as an artist is not easy. And that's exactly what I wanted out of grad school, which is, part of my spiel too. I think you should find a grad school that you should know what you want out of a grad school and find a grad school that caters to what you want, what you need. So I was really, really wanting to focus on storytelling, on artistry. And yeah, I mean, I would say in very many ways, it broke me in a way that I then built back up. And I'm so grateful for that experience. But absolutely, it was really hard at the time. I mean, grad school is hard. And I take that, I kind of joke, I tell the students that I teach as a way to work through my own educational trauma. But it's, what I ask them to do is hard. And the way that I try to get them to really think through, what is it that you're doing? What is the story that you're telling? Yes, whiz bam boom, that looks fun, but why? Where I was teaching at Webster University in St. Louis before coming to UNLV, and they would always joke about the Christina Questions, in which I would ask them some sort of vague question about what they're doing, and there was no real answer to it. Like, these Christina Questions. But yeah, so my time at NYU was really tough.
Who was your mentor there?
ML Geiger is still there. Actually all 3 of them are still there. So ML Geiger is the head of lighting. Alan Lee is his second year, and then Robert Rizzo co-teaches with ML for the first and the third years. So you get this kind of sandwich effect of who you're working with.
So jumping ahead a little bit, when we said that you are a Knight of Illumination recipient, for which project did you win your Koi sword?
So yeah, what an experience. The show was The Wild Party, and it was done in a bowling alley configuration. So we had audience seated on two sides of it and had I'm going to say full stage ceiling. Okay, so now the set designer, who is a dear friend of mine, Edward Morris, he always likes to make sure that I remind people that he did leave me two skylights in this full stage ceiling. So, but I still need to say full stage ceiling, because when the lights were hung before the ceiling went up, and by the time the ceiling went up, it actually didn't quite line up to where the lights were hung. So while I technically did have lights and access, they couldn't get to them to actually focus them. And so it's kind of like we're going to turn these lights on, and there's a little bit of a glow coming from this full stage ceiling. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. So the show was a challenge, absolutely. Black box theater, bowling alley configuration.
Which theater? Where was this?
Oh, this was at LIU Post, with Post Theater Company. So I was just like, okay, how do I carve out this space? How can I make sure that we're telling the story? This is a musical, right? So I ended up setting goalposts on either side on the short ends of the bowling alley configuration. It was a very long rectangle. And one of the conversations that Edward and I had was about the ceiling. And he was like, is it going to be too shiny? All of these things. And I said, no, actually, I want to use the shininess to bounce light back from the ceiling to the actors. Because I was like, I have no way to get backlight into some of these scenes. And so I was like, okay, if I shoot low, then I'm going to reflect off the ceiling to give them a backlight glow. And that was my theory. Like, I'm doing my worksheeting, I'm looking at all this stuff in Vectorworks, and like, okay, in theory, this works. I don't know what's going to happen in real life, and I do not have a plan B if this doesn't work out. So I'm going in with fingers crossed. So it ended up working so well. Like, I used the ceiling kind of as a psych is what happened, and it took on a life of its own. Not to mention, this show in particular was at the same time I was at Tech 4, As You Like It, at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And there was a week off because of how they run their shows in rep. So when the general manager at Post Theater Company was like, hey, we want you to do Wild Party, I was like, okay, here's like the 6 days I'm available, because we're off we have a pause in our tech schedule. So, I need an associate to come focus it and to stay for the final dress, first dress. I don't remember. I left before opening. But I was like, these are the things that I need. And because I'd already had a relationship with her, she was like, great. Yeah, no problem. I know you. I know your work. You can trust your associate. I'm all for it. So we come in, and the ceiling wasn't going to be up for focus, in which I threw an absolute fit about. I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, we have to have the ceiling for focus. How are we going to... It just blew my mind, because I wasn't interested in having somebody focus the lights twice. And certainly at that time, it was easier for me to advocate for somebody who's not myself than it is for someone who is myself. Now I advocate for myself all the time, and I can be really annoying about it. We can ask production managers I work with. But at the time, I was like, I don't want to throw my associate into a position in which she can't do her job. So, got a lot of back and forth about that. We had the ceiling for focus. And I came in, we teched the show. It was kind of a fever dream of a tech process, which I think worked really well for that play as well, too. And so when it came time for the awards, for the nominations, I was like, I self-nominated. I was like, you know what? I worked hard on this show, and I didn't know if it was going to work. And I was surprised, and it ended up looking really good. So I self-nominated. And I guess the good folks at the KLI agreed with me. And so now I have a sword with my name on it, which is actually not here in the moment. It's currently at my office on campus, just as a reminder.
Well, you're part of a very exclusive group of people who have those swords. It's quite something.
What is the most challenging design you have done and why?
That was one of them. That certainly was a lot of challenges. Frozen at Olney Theater Center outside of DC. Super exciting to be a part of this production. It's really beautiful. The cast is incredible. And getting to work with a director that I've worked with a few times before, and working at a theater company that I've been wanting to work with. Because of budgetary reasons, they opted to not have follow spot operators and instead use Zactracks with as their follow spots. And I think that, it's their first time using them in the space. I don't know that the technology is quite ready, that we didn't have enough tech time in order for it to have the level of precision that works the best for this show. And so that was just, that in and of itself is a challenge. So working with this follow spot system that has sensors, so all the performers can wear tags, and then you have it connected to a receiver on the moving light, and the moving light follows the performers around. There are certain levels, so you can have all your moving light parameters, which is great and exciting, and we definitely had some fun with that. But when it's in follow mode, you can have an option of it being either more predictive or more still. So if it's more predictive, as somebody is walking across the stage, it's going to predict that person will keep walking until they stop, in which case the follow spot still needs to figure out, like, oh, this person's stopped. So you can have, there's a spectrum of prediction. We ended up making some focus points so that it's like, okay, we're going to force EOS to take the tracker to this location, and we're going to have it be 60% at follow and 40% at EOS. So to at least get the light in the ish right area. But in trying to figure out the best location for the receivers was also a challenge on this production. Yeah, and I think, and also this was the first time that anybody in the room was using the system. This was a new system for the theater, so I think they were working out what's the best location for them to have their receivers in the space. It was, yeah, I don't know. It ended up being really, really, a really frustrating experience. I think the show looks good, and like things keep peppering in down in rehearsal reports, like, this spot decided to go a little wonky today, and the spot decided to go a little wonky today. I know it's one of those things when working with new technologies, there's always a learning curve, right? Like, however many years ago, we would be like, oh, no, we're not going to use LEDs in a show. They look terrible. But it's like, well, you have to get through the learning curve in order to help with the technology.
Did you have to work with the actors when you were doing the show?
I mean, I had to make sure that they were wearing their tags. And so we had to make sure that their tags were in the same spot the entire time. We learned that the receivers don't go through liquid, which is a human body. So for some people who've had a lot of moments facing upstage, we ended up putting the receiver on their head or on their wig. We double tagged Elsa and Anna, of course. So I think the technology is good, but I think it feels like at this point in history that it's designed more for like a TED Talk, where somebody's wearing tags that walk out on stage. Or actually, one of my students said, I think that they use them in Magic Mike or something on the strip, but they have tags on both shoulders and both hips. And I was like, oh, that might be, because once you have multiple tags, you can set them up to follow the average of what those tags are. So I think that's a really good idea. I think there's a lot of really good potential for this, but where I was just getting frustrated is, if these were actual follow spots, they would have been fired 10 times over. And like, my bleeding heart is very pro-labor. So I'm like, we should be paying 3 people to run these follow spots, because we also have children who are doing the best they can, but they're 8 years old. So it's like their blocking is maybe not always the same. The children are double cast. So we had different settings for like which cast is, there was a lot of additional troubleshooting that we weren't expecting. Oh, also I had one programmer. So that was the other thing, is that once, if we were doing anything with the spots, I was like, I can't work on the queue. I can't build the show. So I know for myself that next time, if this situation comes up, and it will, because, theaters are looking for ways to save money, and labor is one of the ways in which theater companies want to save money. So the idea that using this technology to replace human is that's an effect of that desire. But I know for myself, if I'm presented with this situation again, then I would absolutely insist on 2 programmers. And I mean, my programmer Cody was incredible. Oh my gosh! If you were ever in the DC area, get Cody. Pay her whatever she wants. She gets like all the money. So I would advocate for a second programmer. I had an assistant to work the follow spots, which was great. But the fact that we only had one programmer made it difficult to really work on anything else except for the follow spots, because they had to be adjusted at every level, to the point where, like, it's just how sometimes people like to program moving lights as follow spots, and that drives me batty. It was like so I would say that was the challenge that is most recently on my mind, because we just opened a couple weeks ago. I mean, the show itself is beautiful, and like I said, the cast is incredible. I mean, even at the rehearsal run, like just in the room, I was like weeping. So I was like, everything we do on top of that is icing on the cake. It's just, for me personally, frustrating that introducing this piece of technology.
Well, there's a full day Zactrack session at LDI on Friday.
I saw it. Oh, no. I got that email and I was like, do I go? Am I going to like be chill enough to say nice things when I go? I don't know. Zactrack people, employees, if you listen to this, I'm like, I really believe that you're wonderful people and that you're making I'm sure the product is very great. But no, actually the conversation that I do want to have is, what do I need to know as a designer to make the most of this technology? Yeah, I think we're just losing that human element of like how fast and how smart people actually are, especially working as a follow spot operator.
I have so much I could say about this subject, but I'm not going to touch it today. But I have a different question. How is it at UNLV without our dear friend Brackley flying the plane? And this is actually 3 questions in one. And what do you enjoy about teaching? And what are the key points that you wish to impart to your students?
Brackley, who now? Will?
I think I should leave. If I can start off by before she answers that question, how I started the MFA program and I nurtured it for 28 years. And I'm so happy that we have Christina on board, taking it to the next level in her own way. I am very pleased about who we got and how she found us.
I will say Brackley has just been absolutely lovely, getting me integrated into the community there, taking me out to lunch a couple of times, which is super. And yeah, exactly. He started a really exciting program and grew it. And I am excited about the opportunity just to keep growing. I will say when I applied for this position, it was the only position that I had applied to. It's like funny in terms of my grad program, where I was like, I don't know, let me see, maybe I'll just apply. But where I was at previously, I wanted to check in with myself, and I'm not running away from something, right? Like, I'm running towards something. I'm running towards what I see are a lot of opportunities in a place that is ready to for growth and ready for new ideas. And so that's why I'm just so excited. Like I said, I was like, well, I'll apply. We'll just see what's out there. And then I went and I visited, and I was dazzled. And my coworkers are lovely. We just had our season selection committee meeting, and I can get salty at the faculty meetings. which are great. And that's part of it too. But it's also a place where I feel like I can speak my mind freely and that I'm heard and that people are really taking into consideration, where I like my expertise in the industry, where I'm coming from, and just trying to see, okay, what are the next steps that we can take as a university to move into the future? Everything that circles back to what is the thing that's best for the students right now? What is it that the students need? How can we make sure that we're providing them all of the experiences? Because you can't teach everything. Oh my gosh, like try as you might, right? I'm still learning. I'm learning every single day, which is another exciting reason for me personally to be at a university. I tell people, I get to talk about lighting all day. Somebody's like, we'll give you money if you talk about lighting all day. I was like, that's great.
What are you actually teaching?
So for the longest time, I did not want to teach graduate students. This is based on my experience in graduate school, where I was like, you know what? Grad students are jaded and bitter, because I was jaded and bitter when I was in grad school. And so I just want to...
They still are.
Yeah. So it's just little. And so I was like, I just don't want to teach grad students. I want to stay with undergrads. I my heart is really with the undergraduate population. And so in applying for this, I was like, okay, what am I looking for in a grad student? What is the type of grad program that I want to teach in? What are the things that I can take from my experiences in graduate school, and how can I share that with these students? How can I listen to them, to what is it that they need? What are the things that they're curious about, but also challenge them? And I would say that one of this happened last week. Thank God this happened last week. Yeah, I don't know I don't know when this is going to air, but it's been a week. Am I right? So one of my grad students who begged me not to put him on the Shakespeare. He's like, don't put me on we met before this semester. He's like, please, I don't want to, I hate Shakespeare. I can't, I don't want to be on the Shakespeare. He was glowing the other day in class because he just went to a designer run and he was so excited about the play. And I was like, yes, that is, it just made me so happy. And I told him that too. I was like, as an educator, I just want to remind you that you said you didn't want to be on Shakespeare. And he's like, I know. And it wasn't even about lighting. That's the great thing about it too. He was just like, I thought I was going to have to add a bunch of cues, but I'm just going to turn the lights on and like, they're going to do this and the show's going to be great. Like, yes. Because I think that's also a challenge for lighting designers too, is when not to take attention, when not to take all the focus, and what are you doing to support the show? And sometimes that's a hard lesson to learn as well. So I teach the graduate students that I have students currently in years 1 and 3. And the way the program works is that we accept 4 graduate students. Currently I have 3, but next year I'm going to be recruiting 2 more, so that next year I'll have 2 first years and 2 second years. And then the following year, those students will graduate and I won't be recruiting unless I get my way and we get a lot more money. So we'll see how that works out. But currently, yeah, it's a cohort of 4. And then another thing that was interesting and exciting for me about this position is the opportunity to still teach the undergrad students. So I'm teaching Writing 1 right now to undergrads, only one of whom is interested in lighting, but they're all such great students with such great ideas. They just did this was like their presentation share out day today, where, I have a project that's due at the end of the semester, but I want to make sure that they're actually doing it and not waiting to the last minute, because I know, like we all know students are waiting to the last minutes to do things. So I try to force them to have deadlines. Yeah, I just thought all of their ideas were so brilliant and they were so excited about the work that they're doing. And for me, I'm like, whether or not somebody is going to be a lighting designer for the rest of their life, or whether or not they stay in theater or, work in the arts, or maybe they go to dental school, like that's great. We need dentists who love the arts, who want to understand the power of storytelling. And so that's what's exciting for me about my undergraduate classes. It's a BA program. And I just think like the level of curiosity that they come in with is so rewarding. So, that's where it's the best of both worlds, where I get to teach graduate students and undergrads. The other thing that I think is that I've reached a point in my career in which I'm ready to teach graduate students. And, maybe that was for the longest time where I was drawn to the undergraduate experience. Just had to do where I was in terms of my career. But I was like, you know what? I've learned a lot more in those years, for better or for worse. I try to tell them, like, I'm honest with my students. I try, like, really honest as possible. Where, here are some lessons that I've learned the hard way. I'm going to tell you these lessons that I have learned the hard way, but you also might not be able to understand these lessons until you also learn them the hard way. But I think the growth process is different from everybody. And, sometimes there are growing pains, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to be satisfied with the work that you're doing.
How do you balance your design career and your academic career?
Oh my gosh. This is something that I feel like I talk about with a lot of lighting designers who are also, maybe theater practitioners, I should say, but I just mostly talk to lighting designers because we're nerds. But it is a challenge to work academically and professionally. One of the ways that I found is in seeking out an R1 institution. So where I was at previously was not an R1 institution. And this R1 things that I learned as I go through academia. So an R1 means that they're very research driven. And as an artist, my artistry is my research. And so being at an institution that allows for that is helpful in and of itself, because I'm bringing new perspectives, new technology, again, for better or for worse, and new ideas that I'm receiving from doing shows in all of these different locations. So when I'm offsite, as much as possible, I know what my semester is going to look like, right? So I will structure my syllabus in a way that there are some classes that I think can be taught on Zoom effectively, right? If we're having students present something, or we're doing something in Vectorworks, okay, that's sharing screen. And in many ways, it's easier than doing that on the classroom, because everybody can see somebody's screen and what they're working on. So sometimes discussion classes will be held via Zoom, or working on student projects, or I'll give them projects to work on independently, and I'll let them have class time to do that. So I structure my syllabus in a way that I'm still meeting all of the learning objectives that I set out for the class, but it happens asynchronously or remotely. If that can't happen, which doesn't, sometimes I was like, no, I really have to get these lessons in. I will ask, I had one of my grad students cover a class for me. And Stuart, our lighting and sound supervisor, has offered to cover classes as well. So I feel very supported by the community on campus to continue my research, because also I'm coming back with, here's my light plot. Here's what changed. Here's how these things happened during focus. Here was a really difficult shot that I needed to get between these three pieces of scenery. And we didn't know where to hang the light. So coming with these very real world experiences that I talk my students through is also part of the research share process. I'll also give them a tour of the theater when we're meeting via Zoom. Have them talk to whoever's available. If there's somebody, somebody's doing paint, I'll say, hey, here's our painter, here's our stage manager. We'll talk about conversations about what's happening outside, because I think I hear students use this phrase in the real world, and it's like, no, this is the real world. We are living in reality. And while your practice may be in an academic setting at this moment, which has its own set of safety nets, you still have to communicate with the stage manager. You still have to communicate with the director. You still have to collaborate with your fellow designers, and you still have to manage all of that. Plus, sleep, eat, drink water. I have to get my oil changed, actually. Yeah, I need to. So all of the life things that still happen, I think that an academic setting is a great opportunity for students to learn how to do that, because you don't stop doing that once you graduate. with any luck, you don't stop doing that. So being in a place that allows and encourages my research, celebrating the research that I am doing with my students, and a lot of the times, I'm currently working on spring, but I'll be able to bring a student along as an assistant. So when I was doing Frozen, my assistant was actually a student from Webster University who I offered it to her when I was working there. So she got to come, she flew out, she got paid, which I always advocate for too. I was talking to an artistic director, and he's like, it's so great how theaters build these great relationships with education. Like, he was just kind of making a side comment, and I was like, sir, you have the opportunity to employ a student and fly them out. And he kind of paused because he didn't think that I was going to try to pitch that to him at that point. He was like, well, let me see what's in the education budget. So he was able to scrounge around some money for me to fly out as a student to take a show. And I just think that these are the experiences that then, and then the students all talk to each other. That, I can say these words in a classroom. I can say these words in the theater on campus. But they're actually seeing what's happening in action firsthand. And then they're like, oh yeah, no, you really do have to learn to communicate or show up on time, or, sometimes these wild things happen. And, we've lost a day of spacing for Frozen because a bird flew into the power transformer outside of the theater. And it was just, like, you can't make that stuff up. But the question is, what do you do to adapt? How can you stay flexible, and how can you stay true to yourself and true to your story with the help of the team? That's how I balance it. And then I definitely stay busy, but I have reduced my freelancing workload, which was also part of the reason of me going into academia full time, is that I said that I wanted to curate my career, where I've been so fortunate to have so many experiences. And now I feel like, okay, I'm taking the shows that I want to take, and I'm working with the people that I want to work with. And it doesn't always work out. Actually, I had to decline a show this spring because it conflicted with a recruitment opportunity. And because I'm trying to recruit 2 students for next year, the theater where I was working, that I was speaking with, they were a little uneasy with me missing a final dress and a first preview. And I get it, because this was a theater company that I'd never worked for before. Maybe if it was somewhere where I worked for, they would have been fine with my assistant staying. But the theater company wanted somebody to stay through, and it just couldn't be me. So it's like, it's unfortunate that the schedule didn't work out. I'm sad about that, but I hope that there's a next time.
The other thing is, you are in a tenure track situation, so the expectations are to work outside and design outside, which is very important.
Yes, so that's part of my tenure portfolio, is going and doing. And I just think that part of myself as who I am is that I want to provide opportunities for my students at every given way. So, and going back to how was life at UNLV without Brackley, Brackley introduced me to one of his longtime collaborators recently, in terms of, we're going to have conversations with students about plays. And I had a meeting with the Literary Institute that's on campus about, they wanted to add a little pizzazz to their readings. And I'm like floored with how many different ways there are to use this medium to support stories, to support the arts, and to keep creating.
Christina, it's just a remarkable arc that you've had. So reflecting on that a little bit, not that people will take your advice, but do you have any for young people, which I would still put you in that box as a young person, but okay.
Yeah. It's all relative, Sam.
Younger,
it's all relative,
I know, for younger. So do you have any advice for younger designers entering the field today?
Drink water, start a retirement fund, be kind to yourself. I will say, this is the advice, some of the best advice that I got is that if you don't love what you're doing, don't do it. This industry is hard, and I think that if you're not happy with like any of wherever you are in life, change it. Do something to change it. I think that some people struggle with resources and definitely struggle with infrastructure and struggle. I don't know how much you guys get into politics on this, but struggling current events. And sometimes those are impossible tasks. But what is it that you do have power to control? How can you control it? How can you make your life easier for yourself or someone else? That's one thing I say is that I always try to do something for future Christina, because like current Christina's having a rough time, so I know future Christina's got it rough. So it's like, what can I do for future Christina to make her life a little bit easier? What can you do to make the stage manager's life a little bit easier? What can you do to make your head electrician's life a little bit easier? Sometimes it's kindness, right? Just be kind. Again, the world is stressful, and I don't think the inside of a theater should be. I think that it's hard to create art when you're working in triage or in crisis. And so allow yourself, when you can, the luxury to recognize that your art is powerful, the act of creation is powerful, and beautiful and necessary. And then everybody donate lots of money. I don't know.
I actually do have one little last question. What's your involvement with LDI this year?
Oh, I am going to, I will be on a all-star cast, oh my gosh, of portfolio reviewers. I was looking through the names of everyone who's coming through to review portfolio, and I was like, where do I sign up? Because I want these folks to be looking at my work and giving me feedback. So I know the signups went up recently because my students jumped on that. So if you're listening to this and maybe the signups are full or something, come find us. I love looking at people's portfolios and resume. And also everybody is going to be giving you different things, and they will say things in contradiction to each other. And it's beautiful. I think it's all part of the process, recognizing that it's also probably frustrating as you're going through to be like, wait, somebody said I should only use one type of font, but then this person said I can use two types of fonts. And here's some advice for young designers. Do not put your address on a resume. I see that pop up every now and again, and please do not.
You may say that a lot during the portfolio review.
Yes, if you are hearing the sound of my voice and your address is on your resume, please remove it. It's the internet.
Christina is one of 12 star reviewers this year, and December the 7th, Saturday, from 1 to 5, we'll all be there, and it should be a wonderful time. It's our 15th year doing this, and I'm very proud that it's still going.
Yep. And if you are listening and you need a floor pass to LDI, just use Light Talk, one word, all caps, at LDI registration when you pick your Expo Hall pass, and it will be free. And if you want to go to the portfolio review, that is also free to attend. And you'll find that information under our special events on the LDI web page. So, Christina, that was great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your dual life to be with us today. And I think we all look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Now you're locally, you have to tell us where the best Chinese food is.
Listen, if y'all want to have a good time in Vegas, hit me up. But also, are you all doing you're going to do a thing?
Yeah, Light Talk is doing a thing on Sunday.
Excellent.
Yeah, Light Talk, we're going to be doing ours live show on Sunday.
There will be swag. I just paid for the swag today.
Can you give us a hint, or is it?
Can I give you a hint about the swag?
Yeah, what's the swag this year?
It is, I'll just say, I don't want to give it away. I'll say it is in the spirit of Festivus. It's festive, and some might call it denominational. I would say it's non-denominational. And, it has a shape, a form, a color, and you can do things with it.
And it tells a story.
It tells a story. It has it represents one of the greatest stories ever told.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
Okay,
Oh
Stan.
dear.
How's that?
I think I thought it was denominational, but they didn't.
I don't
listen
think
to
it
me.
is. I don't. Not this. It depends on how you look at it. You could see it as denominational, but you could also see it as it's just a forum.
Okay. All right. Then
Okay.
Is that enough of a hint? I mean,
Yep.
now you can go home and think about it all night, and you'll have sugar plums dancing in your head. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you spent an excellent hour listening to Light Talk.
You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way, you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you wanted to make a big deal out of this and litigate us, the Snoop Group with the legal team of Watson, Leitner, and Beam will defend us until our retirement funds are completely depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sister, coming to you from St. Bart's, Las Vegas, and Gainesville.
be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you a double helping of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
Thank you again, Christina. It's great to see you and hear from you, and we'll see you all next Saturday morning. And bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.